you've got a ritual happening. You've got the altar. Babies have to die. They have to call up spirits globally. At the same time, they will all do the ritual. They will all chant whatever they chant, because it's in the unity is the power. And you've got this person that's trained, is a royal, is powered up, has gone for years and years of pain and torture. Now she has underneath her other people that work for her, worker bees, and they do tantric sex. And so they build up such energy with tantric sex. The tension causes all the energy, and they keep on filling the container the whole time with energy so that the ritual will work. If you take away the energy source, the ritual can't happen. It's not Mickey Mouse. It's shifting money across nations. It's causing wars. It's the fact that they could shut down the world 4 years ago. It wasn't just a thought, okay, let's do it. It was a build-up. It was planned.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another show of myself, John Cooper. And today is a really special episode. I'm thrilled to have this lady on. Her name's Amanda Byes, and she's from the Canaan Ministries. And what she's going to do for us today, everyone, she's going to put together a presentation to connect all the dots historically, and connect it to the Bible about what's been going on with these demonic entities, where it comes from, the Nephilim, all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really important stuff. And Amanda, I'm so glad to have you on. How are you doing today?
Thank you, John. It's a great blessing to be on the show with you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I saw your presentations and you put so much love and care into the work you do. And I'll be honest, our audience are a mixture of Christians, agnostics, people that are still working it out, but they're very open-minded, and that we know that we can't really get the truth from the mainstream media anymore, so we're having to sort of become our own journalists, and that's what this is all about, bringing on thought leaders like yourself to kind of educate us, give us the education we didn't get at school, basically. This is what we need.
All of this stuff is available on our website, so if anyone wants to just jot down the details around the website, it's Canaan Ministries with a K, ministries.org. So all our prayers and notes and manuals and things are all available. So you can download it. It's for free. So I want to get the word out there as fast as possible. Okay, John, I was so excited when you contacted me and you gave me the theme, because it's something that's not spoken about in church, and when we started to talk about it, it was kind of like you whisper it, but it's just because it's strange and it's not something you hear every day. And so we have to go back to Genesis 6 if we want to start understanding the giants. And being in the ministry of DIDSRA, I've been in the ministry more than 40 years, but only really started to hear about mind control people and programming and around, I would say 25 years ago, we started down the journey, and I had a young lady stay with me, but I thought she was just a Satanist and she was just coming out of Satanism. And of course, surprise, surprise, it was a lot deeper than that. And then to try and navigate your way when there wasn't teaching, there was really very little teaching out there. And the little bit we could get in South Africa, we weren't online for quite a while, that we could Google. So everything was through the library. And I wasn't a scholar running to the library to take out books and things. I mean, that wasn't my favorite way of finding out things. And it's so much easier today with Google and, all the information available. And what is so good, John, is the fact that so many survivors are being interviewed and their stories are being heard. They've got their voices back, that is just so fantastic, to know that they can talk and they can be heard. And so that was my first exposure to someone that was mind control. Of course, it came with a huge price, because you don't get into this ministry without war and the enemy trying to chase you away, shoo you away and say, go away, don't want you here. But by God's grace, I pushed through, persevered to help her, and then uncovered a whole lot of stuff. But the information that's going to come forward today is something that's it's come through the years of trying to join the dots and trying to understand. It's not something that is given to you in your lap and now you understand. You bump into these things, you happen to just stumble into these things, and then I packaged it. So it's not, this is a culmination of a lot of stuff that I've packaged. So I trust everyone will be able to follow as we go along. So we're going to start, of course, in Genesis, which is the beginning of all, and it's a reputable word, and it's a safe word to follow. And so we start in Genesis, and that's where God already prophesied that there will be two seeds that will oppose each other. And what we then see is in Genesis 3, verse 15, is where God says, when he spoke the curse out over Adam and Eve after they'd sinned, he said, I will put enmity between you and the woman. He was speaking to Satan. And between your offspring and her offspring. So it's clear there's two lines. There are two seeds happening here. There's the seed of the woman, which will bring forth humans, and then the seed of Satan that's going to bring forth his offspring, which is definitely very different to God's seed. So then God goes on to say that her offspring, who is referring to Jesus, he will bruise and tread your head underfoot, and you will lie in wait and bruise his heel. And so that was with the crucifixion. And that Jesus, it was prophesied that he was going to come to the earth, and he would actually deal with this whole thing around the two seeds. And so, if you follow his, where he walked and what he did when he was on earth, you would, see a lot of things that will come forward and make sense that we didn't see in the beginning, when we didn't understand this whole thing about giants. Okay, so then where do the giants then come from? We see that in Genesis 6, verse 1, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, the fallen angels are referred to always as the sons of God, saw that the daughters of men, they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And so these fallen angels we know the story that Satan went into rebellion, and he took a third of the angels with him, and he was kicked out of God's third heaven. And then he was, kicked on the earth down. As he fell, he had to find his way, and he had to build up power bases where he could operate from. And so he took the mountains, he took the valleys, he took the rivers, all the waters where he built his power bases. And that's where we have Atlantis. And, you get two types of Atlantis. You get old Atlantis and you get new Atlantis. So old Atlantis is where all the scrolls, the ancient scrolls, the bloodline, all the generational secrets are kept in the libraries of old Atlantis. So that is the place where Satan's demonic scrolls are kept, what he writes over the lives of his followers and families. So generational stuff, we go to old Atlantis and we retrieve the scrolls and we get them burnt, because that's what's holding, all the families bound. And then the new Atlantis is all the new technology, all the latest, technosorcery, because the new way of programming nowadays is a total different ball game to the 70s or the 60s or the 50s, when they started to do mind control with a bit of drugs, the LSD that they had then, and whatever was available. But of course, what we have today, it's a total different ball game. It is technosorcery at a level that we struggling to keep up. There is just so much, and especially if you minister to a younger generation mind control victim, you will find so much more high tech, nanobots, xenobots. You'll find satanic intelligence technology. You'll find spyware, malware. You're just on another level. So, we've had to really train and learn to get caught up with the latest technology, and yet it's still going so fast. You learn something now, and then later on, you just realize I've got to play catch up again. So,
and this is all, sorry, Amanda, is this all, you're saying this is all stored in Atlantis, and is this still actually a place now? Because I know obviously the story of Atlantis, but this still exists. And what is it? Is it underground? Is it hollow earth, or what? Where is this?
Well, it's under the water. It's definitely part of the marine kingdom.
Right.
So it's under the sea. And then the old Atlantis will have broken pillars, because you remember the whole thing, it broke, it fell, it went down under. So they are broken pillars. So you can identify it with, the old look, the ancient, the pillars. And then the high tech is this very super duper modern looking buildings, that you find. And so I don't know if you remember years ago, well, when we got TV in South Africa, there was a program called Man from Atlantis. I don't know if you ever remember that program.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I do know it. Yeah, it's from America, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a guy that had stunning eyes. The focus was very much on his eyes.
Yeah.
And how he would swim underwater, and he would go and he would explore and do all sorts of things. So everything took place under the water. And so you're finding a lot of the high-tech stuff that's being developed now. With us being in Africa, a lot of our African people that are into sorcery and witchcraft and really some deep, dark stuff know about the cities under the sea.
Wow.
They can tell you they go there. They live there for weeks. You see them actually walk into the water and don't come back for how long? They go for training, they go for updates.
So these are humans. These are hybrid humans that are like semi-amphibian, like they can breathe underwater, or
yes,
and they've been on this planet for however many 100,000 of years since humans have been, Homo sapiens have been around. They've coexisted with us, but they also go into the seas, into the Atlantic, or all seas around the world.
All seas around the world, rivers, dams, deep in the Congo, there's a big lake. They go in there. The Loch Ness Monster, which is up in Scotland. I mean, it's all the same world.
Right.
It's the marine kingdom.
Right.
And that's where you find the different mermaids and mermen. And they very much around Atlantis. That's where they swim and they do their thing.
Where is that? Where is Atlantis? Is that actually in the Atlantic? Like, where would that be if we looked on a world map?
John, if it's spiritual, it can be anywhere.
I see.
Under the water, though, it's specifically Atlantis is the marine kingdom.
Got you. Yeah, because it's all the water's connected, so it could be any, just referring to that underwater realm. Yeah. Wow, fascinating.
So what we then find, is that it's just a very different ball game today, but you still got the old Atlantis and the new Atlantis, because they are very strong forces and powers that are operating there, even to this day, that is still going. All right, so they saw that the daughters of the men were beautiful, these fallen angels, and they took the wives for them, the woman for themselves. And then it goes on to verse 4, and it says, and they were giants in the earth. So in other words, with them cohabiting with the woman, and they were fallen angels, so they were like demigods. They were they had the status, the ranking of an angel. And then when they were kicked out of the heaven, they then became fallen angels, but they didn't lose their powers and their ranking. They still maintained it, accepting that they were fallen now, and they had to make another plan on the earth to try and see how they could fight back against Almighty God. And so there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. So we're seeing it continued. So the word, and also after that, the giants continued. It didn't stop when the flood came in Genesis, when God sent the flood. But there were giants after that as well, because Samson, we've got David and Goliath, and you've got different places in the word where it refers to giants. So they were definitely still around. And they came to the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. And the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So that's where the giants then came from. And these giants had a human body. So what they used from the woman was the meat, the body, the actual part, the body. They needed a body to live in. So they got a body. But the spirit in them was the spirit of Satan, because it was his seed. And I'm going to explain how that happens.
So did they not have a body themselves then? Did they come down in spirit form?
The fallen angels could manifest. They don't need a body to manifest like the demons. Demons, after the flood, these giants that were around, they were drowned and they got disembodied. So then you have disembodied spirits, which were then demons. And so a demon cannot manifest if it doesn't have a body. And so it needs a body to manifest through. So let's take a spirit of alcohol, can't manifest itself if it's just in spirit form. You will not know it's there. But if it goes to a pub and it can enter into an alcoholic sitting there, then it's got a body, and this guy starts to manifest, and then okay, we're dealing with a spirit here, So a fallen a demon needs a body, but a fallen angel can come in any form. It has the ability to shapeshift into any form, whether it's a human being or an animal or whatever. It can do it. This fallen angel can do it. They've got the ability, and they don't need.
They can materialize into anything, and it's physical. It's not translucent. It's not kind of ethereal. It is a physical form. You could touch it, kind of thing. Yeah,
you can.
Right.
You can. And that's because the question, when we started down this road and we started dealing with Nephilim mothers, and they were saying, but how can these women be impregnated by a fallen angel? It's not possible, because how does it work? But then when you understand that they can change into a human body, and they are very, very good looking. If you listen to those that have seen them, they're very, very attractive. They big guys, like big rugby players, but they're blonde and blue eyes and very Nordic appearance. So that's what they look like today. But in those days, of course, you would have, because this fallen spirit has now come and joined itself to a human being, and now out of this, the fruit is now this giant that is formed.
So the fallen angels came down, and they could have been in any form, but they were actually having human sex, right, with the human females.
Yes.
And then they did that so they would interbreed. They would not interbreed. They would infuse their DNA together, and that's maybe why we have the reptilian part of the brain, for instance. It's like an expression of that that sexual act between the giants, and the giants are also called Nephilim, right? Just for the audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to explain to you the difference between the giants and the Nephilim are the same, but the fallen angel and Nephilim are not.
Oh, right.
Range.
That's where I'm confused. So we'll come on to that in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just to summarize, so they came down. The fallen angels. They weren't necessarily in giant form when they came down. They could have been in any form, but they would have had to be human form enough to attract the women, or at least appear
That's right.
some kind of, I mean, I'm sure they were
Yeah.
raping the women, but
Yes.
but they were in a seemingly human form. They
That's
had
right.
sex with these women or raped these women, and then they procreated to create this kind of hybrid breed of
Yeah.
part fallen angel and part human. And that's what, is that what we all are now, or is that what some of us are now?
Some.
Some.
I wouldn't say all of us, no,
No?
because
Okay.
we've dealt for many years with many bloodlines, and not everybody has got this in the bloodline. So this specifically the royals
Yeah.
were chosen because of the power
Mm.
and what the plan was from Satan to how they would control the world. And I mean, they've really worked hard and they've been pretty patient to get to where they are today.
The blue
But it's
bloods.
very scary.
That's what we call them, the blue bloods, right? The
Yeah, that's
divine
right.
right to rule kind of thing.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
they're from that. Can we say reptilian bloodline? Is that also fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
we refer
They'll
to
be
them as. Yeah.
the reptilians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
be a line of the reptilians.
Okay.
And so, yeah, these fallen angels would have had to come in the form of a man because he would have had to have had, the human body to procreate with women. So there would have been seed, but it's obviously not the human seed, God's seed. This is then Satan's seed. And that's how he then, gained entrance to the woman to try and start to pollute and just intermingle and defile the bloodline, because we were made in God's image. And so now Satan wants to defile that. He wants to hurt God, but he can't get to God. I mean, God is so big, and powerful that he can't get there. But the way he can hurt God is to hurt his children. And so that's been his plan all along.
Yeah, to hurt life itself, isn't it? To invert life, nature
Yes,
itself, and we see that in
yes,
society, which we'll maybe talk about later. But yeah,
yeah,
fascinating. Yeah, fantastic stuff,
yeah,
Amanda.
yeah. All right, so it's quite a shock to find out this. You know, used to, before I got into this understanding, just skip over Genesis 6 because it just sounded so bizarre, and it's just like, oh, come on, it can't be real, it can't be for today. It was that time. But, digging in and working also in this field, you realize that this is a reality. And you see that the sons of God are then the fallen angels, and the giants or the mighty men are then also known as Nephilim or hybrids. We can call them Nephilim or hybrids. All right. And so that's what they look like. I think, I think many of us would run if we would see these big guys, and they've actually found them in caves. The United States Army when they went into Afghanistan, they actually heard this roar coming from a cave. And it was, let me just show you the picture of the guy. And this is what it looked like, this horrific thing. And a lot of the guys were killed just trying to fight this thing. And they've actually testified about it. You can get it on Google, where the guys who saw it and were part of the group that went there, that went to fight, they actually testify. But the guy who was in the front, I mean, it's pretty difficult because he's got to take the brunt, because he had to do the charge, he had to initiate. He didn't make it eventually. So
Did
it
they
was
fight? When they first came down, was there a big fight then? Was there a war? And did they try and like push back against these giants?
You mean the US Army?
Well, I don't know when it was, but was there
No,
not
it's now with Afghanistan. Yeah, when they
This is
went to
going on
war.
now. This is actually
No,
going
no,
on.
no. It was
Yeah.
a while back. So you'll get the report if you look at Google
Yeah.
and just Google giant Afghanistan and the US Army. And
Right.
then you can listen to their reports.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
But when they first came down, let's say, these giants, they first came down, how were they able to have sex with the normal human-sized women if they were like so big?
But remember, it's a fallen angel.
Yeah.
and they can change into a human man. So
Oh,
they would have come down into a normal size human being.
so they can
And the women
shrink, they
would
can
not have,
change, they can completely transform themselves,
yes,
metamorphosize
yes,
themselves. Yeah. Okay.
yes. Do you remember the angels that came to Abraham and had a meal with him? And he then told his wife to go and prepare food and all the rest. But they came as human beings.
Mm.
He thought it was visitors, men that had just pitched up. And he gave them a whole meal. And that is how easy it is to be deceived. And he didn't know he was entertaining angels. But these were God's angels. They were sent by God. But the fallen angels can do exactly the same. The ability is still the same. So they can also come and visit, and you wouldn't know. And what is happening now is that the Nephilim are now becoming more and more infiltrated into our society in different walks of life. They are already operating.
How many walk amongst us, would you say? Like, are they a small
Well,
minority or...
I'm telling you, I was quite surprised. John, I sent you that link of that lady who came out of the Mormon church. And she could, I mean, it's very common. I was quite surprised to hear, how they've been exposed to it. So that was really, to know that it's so rife already. They are really amongst us because
Mhm.
the plans of the evil one has unfolded so much already. The fact that they could get the whole world to stop, John, that they could stop the whole world, stop every plane, stop every train, stop the people, lock them up in their homes, and everything they did. I mean, that's the first time ever in history
Oh,
that
yeah.
that happened.
The last four
And
years,
the
I
fact
mean,
that
yeah,
they could
yeah,
do it,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
it's
Well, it's like the
it,
movie They Live. I don't know if you know that, Roddy Piper, but it's called They Live, and he puts the glasses on and he can see them like some people with the kind of the reptilian face, but without the
yeah,
glasses, they all look human. But
yeah,
when he puts the glasses on, it's like he can see which ones are actually from a different world,
yeah,
a different
yeah,
race. So if they're
yeah.
telling us in movies a lot of this stuff. But would you say it's sort of like still a small 10% of the population, maybe, or less, 1%?
I would say more.
Really?
If you look at how many mind control victims there are,
Yeah.
it's scary to see the number. Wherever we have been, wherever I've ministered in
Mm,
every country, we
yeah.
found them. In every church, we found them. So if the mind control people are there, somebody's got to be over them and making sure that they're doing what they've got to do, for the cult. So
Do they know themselves that they are part of that bloodline and they know that they are off of the fallen angels, or do they not know and they just feel like they're living a normal human life, but they realize that they're part of a bloodline they might find out later on in life, could it be that way, or would you instantly know? And do they have that supernatural skill to shapeshift all of them or not?
are you talking about your survivor?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, let's just say, for instance, let's say 1% of the global population is from the fallen angels. Do they
Hmm.
know that they're fallen angels, or do they live normal human lives? But then some of them might find out that they have a bloodline.
They definitely know there's something wrong.
Right.
They know there's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the symptoms are there. So there's a lot of trauma.
Mm.
There's a lot of no can't sleep,
Yeah.
dreams that they can't account for. There's a lot of symptoms that these people have, and then they go looking for help. And that it's somehow they are drawn to those that are doing generational curses. They are drawn to those that are flowing in the prophetic, because they are crying in their hearts for help.
Mm.
Your royals are those that are of the royal bloodline have been hidden so well. They've been programmed so well, that it's they know something's wrong, but they're not allowed to go for help. If they do go for help, all hell breaks loose around them. So their finances dries up. They are into accidents, all sorts of things that try and stop them from getting help. So the sad thing is that even the counseling world, the spiritual counseling world, has been infiltrated, where they have trained up their own people to be counselors, so that if a survivor comes to them, they put them deeper in, program them even deeper, so that they totally are a blank slate and they can't remember.
I've actually had a guest and she recorded it on her phone, one of the sessions she had. And during the actual hypnotherapy session, whatever it was, you could hear her go like talking like a witch. She started going, "You like this,"
Yeah.
and she was
Yeah.
tying up all the energy in her body. She said,
Yeah.
it's really creepy. They have a network, don't they? And they put all their people out
Oh,
into
yeah.
positions around the
Absolutely.
world. Yeah.
They work together. And if one's in trouble, it's like a spider web. If you touch the little bit piece of a spider web, then it sort of vibrates throughout the whole web. And then, reinforcement comes to make sure that it stays strong. So no, they work together. It's so well planned, John. It is so well planned. Really.
Yeah, it's just
It's only God and God alone that can help us through this.
I've got questions, but I don't want to slow the presentation down. But I'm making notes as we're going along, man.
Sure, sure.
But it's brilliant stuff. I mean, it just fits so perfectly into what I've been doing with the guests I've had on. It's just
Wow.
connect all the dots. It all ties it all together.
Yeah.
It really does.
That's good. Okay, so let's have a look what else was happening in Genesis 6. We see here in Genesis 6, verse 7, and the Lord said, I will destroy man. God was so disgusted with what was going on, because his seed, he told them, stay pure, don't mix the seed. And now they're mixing the seed. There's just one big mess on earth. And he says, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth. He was so disappointed. He said, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. And so you're saying, okay, man, I can understand, because man has been defiled, now the seed. But now God is saying, even the animals, even the creeping things, even the birds of the air, all of this is now going to be destroyed. So why? Why did he say that? The whole thing was the intermingling of the seed. And so if we see, why did the animals have to be destroyed as well? If we then see what God said to us was, don't mix the seed. The humans stay with humans. The animals stay with the animals. The plants stay with the plants. And so the whole thing was that there was a corruption now of the seed. So the mankind seed was corrupted. The animals were all corrupted. The fowls, the birds, their seed was all corrupted. And God was just so disappointed at this world that he created. And now it's just in such a mess. Nothing looks like his image, because that's what the enemy has done, is to destroy the image of God, because us walking on earth we are made in his image. And now that's being destroyed because of the mixing of the seed, the corruption. And so what happened was, we had the mixing humans and animals. Now we read about this, and it's called a myth. It's not a myth. This was real. It wasn't a myth. So we see how the mythological animals, the creatures, were real. There's the bird that's mixed with an animal, with a lion. And then you've got the mermaid. I did a series of recordings on one of the girls, that she was a mermaid, and how she says when she goes into the warm waters, her body is thin. She's a slim mermaid, but when she goes up into the cold areas, she's got to have a bit more weight on her body so that she can stay warm. So it was just fascinating listening, as how they would shapeshift, and the abilities that they have now with transhumanism, that they have now built into the survivors, that they're able to do this. So this was way back in Genesis, where they were, mixing the seed, and causing these bird-like. I mean, there you can see a typical Egyptian god. So you've got the bird and the human. Pharaoh, who believed that he was Ra, the sun god, but also you had so many different gods, and different shapes, and so they were being worshipped. So these demigods, hybrids, Nephilim, was the mix of seed. And God was so disappointed with what had happened to his creation. And so we see 2 Samuel 23, verse 20, speaks about Benaiah, who is a valiant man of Gabzeel, who had done many notable acts, slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. And Moab was a tribe that had been formed through a father and daughters. And they became the Moabites. And so this was incest. The whole thing was around incest. A father that the daughters wanted, it was actually to do with Lot. And when Lot was removed out of Sodom and Gomorrah, his daughters very much wanted husbands, and there weren't men around because they were all destroyed. And so they made their father drunk and slept with their father. And so the children that were born from the father and the daughter coming together were called Moabites. And so we have then, how this history flows forth, and these lion-like men. So there was intermingling of the seed here because it was all corruption. It was built on incest. And so you have 2 Samuel 23:20, and they were 2 lion-like men. So they've got the body of a man, but they've got the lion. And, even in Africa, John, where our kings get initiated, for example, in Swaziland, in any of the countries, the king has to go through certain rituals. That has been for generations, they've been doing it. And one of them, they have to kill a lion, and then they cut open the carcass, and they get into the body of the lion, and they have a baptism into the spirit of the lion.
Wow.
And then they eat the liver, the warm liver and all of that to get the attributes of the lion. And when you walk on the palace grounds, people don't walk upright. They crawl because they are subjected to the spirit of the lion. So we call this animal spirits. So, you've got, when you deal with druidism, which is what we're going to be looking at, because everything that they did after Charlemagne and that, was druidism, and they worked on the 4 elements. And so they worked with the waters and defiled the waters, and they worked with the animal spirits, and the spirits of the air. Even to this day, the Buddhists have got prayer flags, which they put in the wind. And so they will put them up on high mountains, and they would write their prayers on the cloths, these prayer flags. And then as the wind blows, they believe that their prayers are being taken all over because it speaks, so they use the wind, they use the earth. And so the animal spirits is a big thing in Africa. But obviously, if you open your eyes in Europe, you see them too, on the castles, and you see these different animals, the gargoyles and things like that.
Dragons
So
as well. You see a lot of dragons in City of London.
Exactly.
Everywhere.
Exactly.
You see relics of that. You see statues of that everywhere, like little symbolisms of that. But did these hybrid creatures, I mean, how were they created? So you're saying that the fallen angels were able to metamorphosize into animals, and then they had sex with human females. Is that what we're saying? Or are we saying that how does it work?
Okay, John, what happened was the original plan was the fallen angels came. They took, in a human male form, had sex with a woman, and then they gave birth, and then we had the hybrids.
Yeah.
So then we had them. Now I'm going to get to not only what the Bible says, but the books that were removed from the Bible that we weren't supposed to know or see. And those are the books of Enoch.
Right.
And there are a couple other books. The canon, the canon books were removed out of the Bible, but they were supposed to be part of the Bible to give you more background of what you're reading. And so, the book of Enoch even is spoken about in the Bible. So, but you get book 1, 2, and 3. Now, only book 1 is really reputable and safe. 2 and 3 is man-made, and they added a whole lot of other stuff. So, but we'll get there, and then I'm going to explain to you what they then taught mankind was to mix the seed, because they didn't want a pure line, because then God's plan will come into fulfillment. And they wanted to corrupt the seed line so that the Messiah, Jesus, could not be born. That was the whole plan. So if they corrupt the seed line, because remember the curse that was spoken, that there's going to come someone that is going to crush your head. And he tried everything he could to stop that. So how could he do it? He's got to defile the gene pool. He's got to defile this whole bloodline so that there's such a mix now. Nobody looks like God, so that Messiah can't come. That's going to crush his head. And so that was the whole thing, was to bring such corruption that the Messiah couldn't be born, because he feared the Messiah the most.
Yeah. So where did these creatures go then? Was it the flood? They were wiped out in the flood.
With the flood, a lot of them were destroyed. So they lost their body, but then they were disembodied spirits, and they were demons. So there are demons all around.
Yeah. Couldn't some of them couldn't they have gone into the water, some of them?
They did. Remember the pigs? Remember the Gadarene, the guy who was filled with demons. He had a legion of demons. That's 6,666.
Right.
That's the amount of demons he had in a legion. And they were all inside of him. And then the demons knew that it wasn't their time. And because they said to Jesus, "Are you coming to torture us before our time?" And they were petrified. And then they begged Jesus to please go into the pigs. And what happened? They were water spirits. And so the pigs ran and went over the cliff into the water. And they got back into the water that's where they water spirits. That's where they belong. Because remember when Jesus went across to the Gadarene in a boat, there was a storm that nearly overthrew the whole boat, and the disciples were petrified. They woke up Jesus and they said, "Help us." And he rebuked the storm. So how did he do that? It was because of water spirits that had caused the storm to stop him from going across to do the deliverance on that Gadarene.
Right. Okay.
So and then of course, why did Jesus walk on the water? It wasn't to show magic or anything. He was conquering the water spirits. So water spirits play a huge role in the cult. And he was there. He conquered the water spirits.
So that Jesus, I mean, I don't want to go too much into that now, but Jesus was basically sent down by the Almighty to combat all this stuff and to ward it off, to put a stop to it all. How was he able to put a stop to it all, though?
Well, what he did was he proved his power over them, because he walked on top of them. Again, his heel was on top of them. So, and the final was when he was on the cross, when it was all fulfilled. So the battle has already been won. But Satan is believing, he's such a father of lies, that he's believing himself, and he's thinking he's still going to win at the end. So everyone that follows him have taken the bait, and they are believing him that he's going to win at the end. But we know it's just deception.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we're seeing that now, aren't we? All the deception going on, like rife,
Huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, so we see in Matthew 24, verse 37 and 38, where the Lord speaks to us now in our time, and he says, "But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." So God is giving us a hint that what we saw in the time of Noah, hybrids, mixing seed, the mix of animals and humans and everything they were doing in the days of Noah, he says we're going to see it again. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. So the word of God is coming true, and we're seeing it being fulfilled in our time. All right, so for as the days were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. And so, I mean, eating and drinking is everyday life. So why would the Bible say that? Why does God still have to say they were eating and drinking? As a human being, you've got to eat and drink to live. But there's something behind it. He's telling us more, but we've got to go to the book of Enoch to find out what's behind this, because the book of Enoch could give us more detail. And so they were giving in marriage. So that sounds like forced marriages, where there's pre-planned, you'll marry this one, and, the whole royal laws that they put in place, who you'll marry. And so we see that there's something about the eating and the drinking that God is wanting to show us. Eating and drinking, like crunching down. This is what the words mean. If you go to the original Hebrew, crunching down, eating flesh and bones. And so it's something that's going on that's not just normal human being eating and drinking food and drinking water. There's more here. And so the marriage was, they were forced into marriage, that time as well as now, and prearranged marriages. Like, for example, you would find the incubus and succubus spirits. That's on a bloodline. And that means that there were covenants made by the forefathers with the spirits that they would dedicate their children and the next generations into a marriage with these spirits. So that's why the children tell you, but I remember having sex since I was a 2-year-old. Since I was small, I remember having sexual encounters, and this entity has come to me all these years. And now I can't marry. I can't go into a normal marriage because I'm married in the spirit. And so we're finding this in many families where they're not getting married. They can't find a marriage partner. It just doesn't work out. And so because they already claimed in the spirit. So there's a marriage claim, there's a prearranged, there's covenants made by the forefathers with spirits that then walk with the family, and familiar spirits that walk with the family and stick with them. And so then the marriages they would take a baby and they would start with sexual things with the children and make them totally addicted to these spirits.
These dark spirits, right?
The dark spirits. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the missing books that I'm referring to is the book of Enoch. So this is the one that I said the Bible also talks about, but it's book 1. And these books can fill in the missing pieces for us. The books that were removed by the Roman Catholic Church, because they were part of the Bible, but they decided to remove it because they didn't want us to know. Mankind wasn't supposed to know about this. And they kept these secrets for themselves for many years. And so this book of Enoch explains to us what was the eating and the drinking and who were they then getting married to. And here we see the book of Enoch, chapter 7, verse 1-5, and they took wives for themselves, and everyone chose for himself one each. So this is exactly parallel to what the Bible says. So it's confirming what the Bible has told us. And they began to go into them and were promiscuous with them. And they taught them charms and spells. So the witchcraft, we've got the chanting, yeah, we've got, everything to do with witchcraft, came from the fallen ones. They came to teach mankind all about this. That's where we learned about witchcraft and casting spells and, cutting roots and trees. Now, there are godly herbs and things God has given us that's good for us. But what they have done was they would then put spells on the herbs to infuse them with demonic power and charge them with demonic power. And so that's where things went wrong. So mankind eating herbs and whatever comes from the forest and berries and whatever, it's good for us. I mean, there's nothing wrong. God gave it to us as food. But what you can see what the fallen angels have done is they've come to corrupt mankind. And here we get deceived and we get taught, no, you can't just take the roots and the herbs like that. You must now cast spells and you make potions. And so, they taught them how to make these potions and the witches' spells and things. And they became pregnant and bore large giants. So this we read in the Bible. So this is just a confirmation. And these devoured all the toil of man. So everything man had planted, all the crops, they ate so much because they were so big that they had to eat. And so they ate whatever man had planted for themselves until men were unable to sustain themselves. So there was no way. And I was just thinking a lot about, how the farmers are now being challenged to give up their land, to stop farming.
Yeah.
Because
I just did a show on
apparently,
that. I just did a show on that lot yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we're linking some dots here.
Well, we're linking some
But
dots. So basically, yeah, all the farmland is being monopolized and
yes,
controlled and taken away because then it can be replaced with their synthetic version with the GMO seeds and
exactly.
the synthetic 3D printing lab meat, wherever it is,
Yeah, yeah. But look at how it was already happening in Genesis, that they would devour everything man did. And this is what's happening. I mean, all over the world, people are saying, but where are we going to get food? The farmers are crying out, how are we going to feed the people? And now the land is being taken and they're being told all sorts of rubbish about, carbon dioxide and all sorts of things that's poisonous and, nitrogen and all sorts of nonsense. So, now they're taking the land away from us. So the same thing is happening now again. It's just in a different form, but it's still the giants behind this. There's still the fallen angels behind this, orchestrating it all.
Can I just ask about, can I say that the way that they're pulling the strings then, is that because a lot of them died and you said they went into spirit form and that's where they're kind of disembodied and not actually in a body? So that the way that they can still operate in this realm is that they attach into the vessels, like human vessels, and these are like the bloodlines. Is that correct?
That's right.
And then they can, so attaching to these sort of blue bloods that are still in the physical form and they can take over them. And can they even take over like humans as well if they corrupt their bodies enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the ones that they made the covenants with were the kings of the earth. They've made covenants with the kings of the earth, and the kings of the earth were ruling the world, but they've actually handed over to the Nephilim. They've already handed over.
Were they good? Are you saying they were benevolent, the kings of the earth?
The kings of the earth are the blue bloods.
Oh, they're the blue bloods. Okay, yeah. So the evil kings.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just because I'm thinking, could they have been good people? Yeah, no. Okay, so they were like they were part of that fallen angel bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they made covenants and they handed over the authority, just like Adam handed over the authority, the keys he handed to Satan. So it's happened now where the kings of the earth, the blue bloods, have handed over the authority to the Nephilim and the fallen angels to control this world. So they are getting their information, and I'm going to go through how they do it. We're going to get there so you can understand how it's been done through the generations. And so the giants turned against mankind in order to devour them because their food was gone. Mankind didn't have food to eat. Now the giants were hungry, so they started to eat man. So they were petrified of this. And that's why you've got King George, slaying the dragon. And because the dragon was eating the people, the whole story around King George and the dragon, slaying the dragon was catching the people, and then he had to be slain. So you see King George with his spear going through the dragon. So it's all a play on what was going on. And so we see that they began to sin against the birds. Look at this. Enoch, the book of Enoch tells us they began to sin against the birds. In other words, there's sexual stuff. They're mixing their seed, Satan's seed, with the birds that God created, against the animals and against reptiles. And that's why you have snake and serpent worship, where they have sex with the snakes, and you've got the belly dancers, you've got the naked, the girls, the strippers that dance with the snake, because it's all the sexual stuff. And this came from the fallen ones that taught mankind, this is the way you must do it. So you have in certain nations like India and these places where there's a lot of serpents and snake and serpent worship.
Yeah.
Where they play with the snakes and the sexual stuff that happens, the defilement, again, the seed is defiled. And they devoured one another's flesh and drank blood from it. And so this is what we started to see, the crunching down, the eating and the drinking wasn't just normal eating and drinking. This is now where they are eating the animals, they are crunching down on the bones. And the human beings, they're eating the humans as well, because there's no food. And so they needed to stay alive. Okay, so we see this is so crazy. It just seems like, can it possibly be? And then we see that God was never pleased with Esau. Esau and Jacob were the two twins. That was the start of Israel. And we see that God, they both bring offerings to God. God accepts Jacob's offering, but he doesn't accept Esau, because Esau was disobedient. God told him, don't marry into the tribes, don't go into the heathen nations, because he knew that their seed was mixed. But Esau was disobedient, and he married a Canaanite woman, which means that now his seed, his whole lineage, is defiled. And here we have the line of the giants coming through. And so the Canaanites were part of the descendants of the giants. And that's why God rejected Esau, because he was disobedient. Because people struggle with this. Why did God accept Jacob and his offering, but he rejected Esau? But it's because of the lineage, because Esau went and messed up his whole lineage. And all the children after that would be defiled and twisted. So God couldn't accept him. He couldn't accept his offering. Okay, in the book of Enoch 8, chapter 8, verse 2-4, and there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. And so mankind just went after these fallen ones, started to practice what they were teaching them, and followed after that. And that, of course, just disturbed God tremendously. He was very upset. Now, there's some names of the fallen angels here in the book of Enoch. Zemjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. So he's the one that gave the potions and how to mix up and conjure up things, from the herbs and to bring demonic power to it. Aramaros is the resolving of enchantments. Barakwal taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Araquil, the signs of the earth. Samsiel, the signs of the sun. So now you've got all of the stuff, sun signs, the worship of the sun. Everything came from these fallen ones. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And so how they would worship the sun. I mean, the whole Freemasonry is worship of the sun. So that's what they are into, the aprons that they wear, and it's a sex cult.
What's
That's what the Freemasons are.
what's wrong with worshipping the sun though? It's a giver of life, isn't it? Yeah.
Romans 1, the book of Romans 1 tells us that mankind left worshiping the Creator and started worshiping the creation. In other words, gave worship. And God says that He alone is the one, He's the Creator. So why would you worship the sun and the moon and the stars? I mean, they just created beings, whatever He created, elements that He created. And they were created to be signs for the seasons. That's why God created them, not to be worshipped. And they were not that. And so in Freemasonry, you get people, and a lot in Africa is all sun worship. And so also moon worship is where the moon and the cycles of the moon work with the menstrual cycle. And so if women wanted to fall pregnant, and they couldn't fall pregnant, they would do rituals with the menstrual blood, and they will bring offerings to the moon and the moon goddesses. So it was all that these fallen angels taught mankind was not to worship the Creator, but to worship creation. And then Romans 1 goes on to say, and God handed them over to their lusts, to that which they lusted after. And I mean, it was crazy. And that's where homosexuality is being described. And it's not that we're against the people, John.
Yeah.
We love the people. They just hurt. They're just hurting, and whatever they've been through is pain. It's pain. They've been hurt through life.
Yeah, we've been deceived. We've been deceived and misled for so long that we don't know. A fish doesn't know it's in water because it's been completely subsumed in water all its life. A little bit like we're in a sea of deception, so we don't know any other perspective other than what we're living in, that kind of thing. Can I just ask about the flag? Isn't the Christian flag a cross on top of a sun in some of you see that iconography sometimes, and then when you go into the East, you see more crescent moon symbolism with the Arabic Muslim religions, right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you look at what Allah is actually a moon god.
Yeah.
So you do find that.
But Christianity, the sun, is it Christianity is the sun worship, is it not? With the sun, the cross on the sun.
The Babylonian guys, yes. In other words, if they are hanging on to the Babylonian roots, like the Roman Catholics, and again, it's not the people.
Yeah.
We got nothing against the people. We love the people. They are God's creation. But it's just the deception that has come in, by sticking with Babylon and the orders of Babylon. And so, if you look at where Babylon came from and how it started in Genesis 11 already with the Tower of Babel. So you just see the deception there.
So is Babylon coming from Canaanites? Is that right or not?
Yes. From the land of Canaan, yeah.
So it went from Canaan to Babylon to the Phoenicians, maybe, and then to
Phoenicians were there too, yeah.
And then it ended up with, where did it then go? Did it then become what we now know as Israel, state of Israel?
No, Israel was God's land. Well, when they cleared the land, they were supposed to clear out the land. And that was the whole thing of getting back the land. The promised land was Canaan. That was the promised land. God said, I give you the land, but you will have to fight for it.
Right.
And so that's when Joshua had to go in and he had to fight the different wars. And, so it was all the time, but God said, don't make covenants with their gods. Don't fall into that trap because you're going to be weak. You're gonna lose. You're gonna end up in trouble. And so, but they did. There were so many of the nations that did.
Yeah. So it went from. Do we know like the order? Like went from like the land of Canaan. Is that right? The land of Canaan, and then it went. Did it move into Babylon, and then is it Sumeria, or I don't know? Is there like an order to it of how it developed?
Yeah. Well. The whole thing about the Tower of Babel and where it was built is obviously not in the promised land, but on the edge, on the side there. And it was part of the territory that they had to get through. And how the people then went and built this Tower of Babel. And, how Jericho was one of the places that they had to deal with and get the walls to fall down. And that's how they entered the land. And then they had to start taking possession of the land as they conquered the different cities of the land.
Fallen
And
ones.
so,
The fallen
yeah,
ones. Yeah.
yeah. So, Babylon had a huge effect on the promised land, obviously, because of the people. And then they would be taken off into exile into Babylon. They were taken, Daniel was one of those, as a young man, taken into exile into Babylon, which wasn't too far away. So, from Jerusalem, he was taken into exile. So Babylon played a big role in the war in the beginning, as they were trying to find their way and build a temple, because once they built the temple, then that was establishing God's territory. So that was, where King David would rule from, was Jerusalem.
But these are sorry, I'm getting confused now. Which one are the fallen ones and which ones are the normal, the humans resisting all this? When you're saying they built the tower and they built Babel, I mean, are you saying the fallen ones?
That's Babylon. That's where the fallen ones were. I'm going to get to Nimrod now, who was the king of Babylon.
I'm maybe,
Okay.
I'll leave the questions to the end, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So we then see that a lot of the fallen angels taught mankind a lot of scary things, a lot of the occult and the witchcraft and the things we're seeing today. So the Bible speaks about King Og of Bashan explaining to you the giants. So I just want to run through some of these giants. If we look at modern man on the left, he's 6 foot. It's quite a tall guy. A 6 foot guy is quite tall. And then you have Goliath. He's 10 foot. And then you have the Irish giant. Now, we went to Ireland and we went to see this giant. He's in the medical part of the university. He's in a glass box. And you feel like a midget standing there looking at this giant. He's really big. And then King Og was 15 foot. So, I mean, it's just to give you an idea of the giants. So when you come out of the time when the giants, when they were born from the woman and giants came forth, we're talking about the big guys. After the flood, there's been a lot of speculation, people trying to work this out, because nothing was really written down and records weren't kept. And so they were trying to get as much information to put together the story. And they said that what they believed was in the ark, the Bible says that God chose Noah because he was perfect. Now, perfect doesn't mean he had no sin or anything. Perfect means his bloodline was untainted. There was no intermingling with his blood. His bloodline was pure. And that's what the Bible calls perfect. His bloodline was pure. But what they are saying is that the daughter-in-laws that came on with the sons of Noah that joined the ark, they had mixed seed. And then the children born from them brought forth giants. So that's why they were still giants after the flood. And they were saying that it's because of the daughter-in-laws that carried the gene and then gave birth after the flood. And so that's why we still get David and Goliath. So there were still giants around. Because everybody's saying, but if the giants were wiped out with the flood, how come the Bible talks that there were still giants? So where did they come from?
They snuck
on.
It
was because, it's because of the daughter-in-laws.
Was it actually a boat then, Noah's Ark, or do you think it's metaphor and it's something else? It's referring to something else.
It's difficult to say, John. You don't know whether they escaped the flood. Were there some of the giants that actually escaped the flood? Did they go to high places where they were not killed? That some of them survived. There's just speculation. You don't know.
Mm.
So, I've read quite a few parts where they were talking, about it, and what they were saying. And it's difficult. I mean, you've just got to say, okay, one day we'll know. One day we'll definitely know what happened. I know that Michael Heiser, he also was a very good Hebrew scholar, and he's passed away now. I think it was with COVID he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But he also had, some thoughts around that. So there have been scholars, really good biblical scholars, that have different opinions,
Mm.
and they've actually debated it, which is good to listen.
Yeah.
I don't want to break my head about it, because nobody really knows. God knows. But all we know is that the Bible tells us there were giants around afterwards.
Yeah.
And so did they go to high mountains and they actually survived the flood? How do we know? And were the daughters of, the daughter-in-laws, were they carrying the seed of the giants? But it did carry on after the flood. There was definitely, but what we do see is that there was a watering down. The strength of the enormous giants got less and less and less. So they did start getting, smaller giants, like the Irish giants and Goliath. When David came to fight Goliath, it was still a huge giant, but it was, it wasn't the same as King Og. They had to have a special bed made for him. The Bible explains the bed that they made for him to sleep on. And so this is interesting, John. Just watch these guys. Watch them. There they go. And they skeletons that get the flesh on. And so right on the left-hand side, you've got the present-day man, 6 foot again, a big guy, in our language, a tall guy. And then you've got the Caesar of Rome was 8'6". So Rome had a lot of the giants. You've got Goliath, who was 12 foot there. Then you've got Turkey. The giant of Turkey was 15 foot. You've got King Og, 18 foot. You've got this from Lucerne. You've got the Swiss giant is the next one, 19 foot 6. And then from France, you've got 23 foot. And another one from France is 25 foot. And then you've got the where are these guys from?
Carthaginians.
Yes. These were they were as tall as cedar trees. So that means, I mean, you can just imagine what you felt like, as a human, seeing these big guys, and how hungry they were, how much they ate. So it's huge.
It must have been a bit off-putting. Imagine being a giant and thinking you're so much bigger than everyone else, right? And then suddenly another big whopper comes. You meet someone who's even bigger than you. Like, whoa! This is maybe why we get the Gulliver's Travels. The book.
Yeah,
Jonathan
that's
Swift,
right.
Gulliver's Travels, where he's in a he's a giant in
they
one
tied him
world,
with
and then
string.
and then he goes to another world, and then he's tiny compared to the giants there.
Yes.
They're probably telling you, they're leaking this out in movies and books, aren't they? Lord of the Rings as well, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, something that's presented to you as a story is really some truth there, So, I think we've got a lot to learn. Anyway, what we then see with these giants is that what is the hierarchy of the fallen angels, Nephilim and humans? Just so that we can understand, you've got the highest of these are the bad guys. So the fallen angels, that when they were kicked out of heaven, as the highest ranking, then you've got the Nephilim, and they come because of the humans. So this is your ranking. Your fallen angels are your top rank. They don't need a body to manifest. They can shapeshift into any shape that they want to present themselves. And then you've got the Nephilim, which is the demigod hybrid mixture. So they've got some human, and of course they've got Satan's seed. And then you've got the humans, which is God's seed. So how did they come about? We see here, it's where the fallen angels cohabited with the woman on the earth, and then what came forth was the Nephilim or hybrids. So they are of a lower rank, but they're still pretty powerful. They have the seed of Satan. And today we have what we work with, the people that we work with are called Nephilim mothers. And I'm going to tell you where it started and how it was all laid out in history, how the plan ran, the timeline ran, and up to where we are today. So it's just to give you a clear ideas, because you hear these words and you don't know quite where it fits in. So it's just to understand you've got the fallen angels kicked out of heaven that came and took the woman of the earth and then gave birth to the Nephilim, playing a huge role in today, in the end times that we're living in.
So the fallen angels
And
still
so
exist today, do they, or not? Or have they gone away now? And it's only the hybrid Nephilim that are here?
no, fallen angels are definitely still around.
So you've got the fallen angels and you've got the Nephilim still both
Yes, yes,
separate,
but
but
a
both
different
here.
ranking.
Right,
Okay,
okay.
different ranking. So your fallen angels are those that have still got the powers and the abilities that they had when they were in heaven, when they were with God, because Satan himself was allowed into the throne room of God.
Mm.
So he was made with a whole lot of pipes, and he was the angel of music and worship. He understands worship. That's why he craves worship. And so he, to understand all the heavy metal music and, the whole music scene, which is worshiping Satan, it's an army with different regiments. And so you will have a regiment that do headbanging and worship Satan through headbanging. Then you've got a regiment that's goth, and they worship with goth. And then you have reggae. So there's another regiment. So all your different types of music isn't just music because it's fun to have music. It's regiments of armies.
Well, all music?
That's
There's no good music?
I won't say that. No, I won't say that. Not at
Okay,
all.
yeah.
No, no.
Phew.
But there are those that come with a plan. And so that's why you need to discern if you feel that some music is stirring you in a negative way. There's negative frequency coming at you, and you're becoming angry, and you're becoming, suicidal or whatever from listening to certain types of music.
That's like
I
all
remember
modern music now. That's like I can't listen to any modern music now. It just feels absolutely awful.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's just, there's a plan behind it. There's a
yeah,
frequency, because everything is based on frequency, John. We are made with frequency, and we vibrate. And so we have to vibrate according to God's frequency, so that we aligned with him and how he put us on this earth. But we've got negative frequency because Satan now takes us and he pumps us full of all trauma, negative stuff.
yeah.
And that's a negative frequency.
I think they've said that it's called the devil's frequency, and they've changed it from 440 hertz to
You're right.
432 hertz. Or it could be the other way around. I'll have to
The other way around. It's
get it.
432 is the key of David.
Right.
So that is God's music. That's God's rhythm. But Hitler changed it to
Right.
440 to dumb down the people.
It's worked. That has definitely
It
worked.
did.
Yeah.
It
So just
did.
going back to so the fallen angels still exist in this realm. They can still shapeshift, right? And they
Yes.
take on physical human form, and then they can shapeshift into other forms. Okay.
Yes.
And you've got the ones that are part human and part fallen angel, the Nephilim, and they walk amongst us as well. They're just a DNA
Yeah.
bloodline, that physical in
Yes.
a physical form. They can't shapeshift. No.
No, because
Yeah.
they have a human body.
Yeah. Okay.
So we don't have the giants anymore, because they knew that we are looking for giants, because as in the days of Noah, it was
Yeah.
giants. But now they perfected the creation of the Nephilim in such a way that they look so 100% human. That's why it's difficult for us to discern them,
The fallen
because they have
angels.
to infiltrate
Yeah.
life.
How do they not get caught out with all the cameras and social media and people with smartphones? How is it they not like shapeshift and someone's caught it on camera, like some of these people?
Well, they are over the technology. Just remember that. they gave the technology. They know spyware, malware. They know all the technology. So I had a girl that I worked with. She was part of World Bank, and she was being taken out every day by the Nephilim and taken on assignments. And she tried to catch them out, but it didn't work. So she took a bicycle chain, tied herself to a table or a bed or a something, but chained herself up, and then put a camera on her while she's sleeping, but had to leave the light on so that she could film if anyone opened the door. And so night after night, this girl would be chained up, give me the key when I was overseas where she was. She said, if you hear something, come and help me, because I'm going to catch these guys. And eventually I said to her, listen, it's not going to work, because there's parts inside of you that's working with these guys, and they are opening up. I mean, it's nothing to unlock chains and locks and doors, and it's nothing. And so I said to her, just let it go, because this is not going to work. You're not going to catch them. So there are times that the camera would just be stopped, and she would go, they would take her, and when she's back in bed, they would switch it on again. So, they've designed the technology. Yeah.
Good, but people just have with their own eyes seen people shapeshift, though, haven't they? Like that's the thing. They've definitely seen that. Like the royals, would they be fallen angels then? The British royalty, the kind of Saxe-Coburgs, or would they be Nephilim, or what would they be?
I wouldn't say that they are that rank as a fallen angel.
Right.
But that they do have powers and abilities, and we're going to look at that now.
Okay.
How did they get that?
Yeah.
All right. So the Bible speaks about 3 heavens. So the 3rd heaven is where God Almighty is, where his throne room is, his angels, his elders are sitting around the throne. So that's all in 3rd heaven. 2nd heaven is where Satan rules. And if the angels come down, if the angels have a message to give to us, they've got to get through 2nd heaven, because they're coming from the throne of God. God gives them an assignment and tells them go down to earth. So let's just look at 1st heaven is the galaxies that we know, that we see, the stars and moon and sun. And then here we are on earth, and where we pray on earth, we are actually in 2 places at once. We are physically on earth, but in the spirit, we are seated with Christ in heavenly places. So we are above 2nd heaven, which means that we have a mandate to officiate for God in the heavens, in our prayer as we pray. So although we're praying physically on earth, we are moving in the spirit, and we are with God. So now when there is a assignment, so the angels have to come from God's throne room through 2nd heaven. 2nd heaven now has your dragons that we spoke about just now. I mean, the fallen angels, they are all operating on 2nd heaven. So that's where Satan is trying to block. And Daniel tells us this whole story about how the angel tried to get through to him. But he says, I had to call Michael to come and fight for me. The angel Michael had to come and help me get through 2nd heaven. And when I go back, I'm going to fight the prince of Persia on my way back. And so the story that I'm telling you now is written in the book of Daniel, and it describes his prayer life, and he describes that this is the way we fight battles. The battle between God's angels and the fallen angels are fought in 2nd heaven. There are very good books written, John, by Frank Peretti, called This Present Darkness. It's a storybook based on the Bible But you can't put it down. I mean, you go through the night with this book. It is fascinating how he describes when we pray as believers, it empowers God's angels, and the Christians win. But if the Christians don't pray, then the demonic angels win. And so the whole time you've got this fighting between God's angels and Satan's fallen angels. And so the battle is fought, what man is doing on earth. Are we praying? Are we interceding? Do we understand our role with God? Do we understand what our prayer life is? So this guy has put it into a story, and it is brilliant. If you can get hold of it, Frank Peretti, This Present Darkness, and the second book is called Piercing the Darkness.
On that, by the way, I've heard people talking about this in other kind of words, in that they talk about as 3D and 4D, and within 4D you have the negative entities, and then you have, some have said there's also good entities in angels in that realm, and then some people have said 5D, which is like the more angelic realm. So I've heard other terminology for this as well. That's what this is referring to, right?
Yeah, I'm going to show you that there are actually different dimensions. I'm going to show you a slide now with the different dimensions. But I hear what you say, and I think it's good to listen to, I love to open up and listen, so and learn. So, just to understand that there's the Bible speaks about a third heaven and the second heaven, and then the first heaven is the galaxies, and then we are on earth. And then Daniel explains, the whole thing of prayer and what prayer does. So if we look here, we see, according to the superstring theory and the Bible, there are 10 dimensions. So what you have here is there's your first heaven, which refers to the body of man. I mean, we have to be on earth and we have to have a body to be on earth. And then you've got second heaven, which are the principalities and the prayers and the soul. So I can fight with my prayers, and then third heaven is the throne of God, the court of the Lord, and the spirit of man, where we are seated with Christ in heavenly places. And then you've got dimension 0, which is Sheol, another word for hell, and the bottomless pit. And so where the angels, the 200 angels, now the book of Enoch tells you that there were 200 angels that had intercourse with a woman, and those giants were created. Now those 200 fallen angels are locked up in the bottomless pit. But that pit will be opened. The book of Revelation tells us that the bottomless pit is going to be opened up. And that means that they're going to be released. And when they get released, it's going to be like one of the signs that the end is very close. So they're going to cause absolute havoc, but they are waiting to be released from the bottomless pit. And then you've got your 10 dimensions, and so you've got the outer darkness, and so this is just an idea of how things are put together because of first heaven, second heaven, third heaven, but that you have 10 dimensions. Others speak about 30 dimensions. I've heard survivors talk about 30 dimensions. So I'm not putting this into cement. I think this is an idea. But I'm open that there could be more dimensions, obviously.
It's a great framework, though, isn't it? It kind of you've summarized this framework well here. And you like you said, you've got wiggle room to maybe adapt it, but at the moment this is a good enough blueprint to work from.
But I've worked with survivors that have told me, but they're 30 dimensions. So I'm open to learn. I mean, we don't know it all, eh?
Of course, still learning, still students, aren't we?
So what about today? What can we say about all of this as in the days of Noah? So Luke 17, verse 26 and Matthew 24, 37 says to us that Jesus was talking to his disciples and they were asking him, how will we know when it's the last days? How do we know when it's the end times? And Jesus told them, and just as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the time of the Son of Man. And so we need to look out. We've got to study the days of Noah. We've got to study Genesis 6 so that we can understand what are we waiting for? What are we looking for? What are we in for? And I can tell you that just what, the people I've ministered to in the years, throughout the years, and the things that have come forward, we are there. We are truly there, as in the days of Noah. And I will explain that with slides. Is there any evidence in end time prophecies? Today we see yes. An important clue is given in Daniel's explanation. So the book of Daniel, which gives us the whole prayer story of how you pray, is a parallel book to Revelation. So Daniel had certain keys that God showed him, and he said, keep it locked up until the time is right, and we release these seals of the seals of Daniel. And so we see that Daniel saw a statue. The king had a dream, and Daniel had to explain to him what this dream was. So this statue, this is interesting, he described the statue, and it was different time periods. And so we see the head is Babylon. So that's where it started. That's why I'm saying to you, all of the occult and everything we see today started with Babylon. So that's where the head is. And then Medo-Persia is the body. And then you have Greece, and look where Greece points to. It points to the loins. And the Greek gods are all over the world. And the loins is the seed. It's the place of the seed. And so the seed of the Greek gods have gone all over the world. And that's why God says that the war will be between the sons of Zion versus the sons of Greece. So there's going to be a huge battle still that's coming up. And then Rome is referring to the legs. And then we have Europe, which is referring to the feet. And the feet is made up of iron and clay. And so iron and clay can't mix. And that is referring to us, the nations. So the 2 feet, the 10 toes, and everything is described in the book of Daniel. And there are many people that have done, studies on this, brilliant studies. So look where Europe is coming in. Yeah, you've got Rome, and the Roman Empire is definitely going to stand up, in the end. And also then, of course, what's happening in Europe. And so we see Daniel 2:43 speaks about the feet. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Man cannot mix with a fallen angel. They brought forth this hybrid, but it's not good. It's not positive. So mankind's seed, they do a mix, but it's not supposed to mix. There's this bad mixture. And so what happens is that this image gets to the feet that can't stand, because iron and clay can't mix. So we can't be in unity with the fallen angels, because there's going to come a time where the people that are following them are going to see who they are, and they're going to run. They're going to realize they've been deceived. So this is just the image that describes going towards the end times. Now, let's follow that through. Is there any evidence that we see? And we see the increased supernatural activity after Israel was formed as a nation in 1948, because we know that this is God's people, his chosen people, and not that they're better than anyone else, but there are qualities within them that they have preserved the word of God all these years in clay tablets, and they have been serving. There's a remnant that has been serving the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, not the majority, not all of them, but there has been a faithful remnant that has served and followed the God of Israel. And so since 48, we have Roswell, the whole thing with the UFOs, the increased UFOs that have been coming into Roswell, people that have told their stories of how they've been abducted, cows, animals that have been cut open, and their seed. Everything is about the seed. How people have described how they've gone through experiments and how their seed has been extracted because they wanted to continue with the experiments in motherships, and to mix the seed. They have been doing this again. They've been following the same pattern as in Genesis. And so we see the mingling of the seed that has taken place. We see transhumanism, where man mixes with machine. And then we also see GMO foods, which you have mentioned. And so we see that, the transhumanism is where they can run and jump much further and higher than a human being. We've got super soldiers that they have, a cheetah is an amazing animal, high speed and very far vision, 4 kilometers it can see. And so, and it can run, so fast. So it's just an amazing animal. So they take the seed of the cheetah and they splice it into a super soldier. And that guy can see at night. He can see far. And they make them also then to do remote viewing. So the spies of today are very different to Sherlock Holmes and, the spies of long ago. The spies of today is a different ballgame. Astral projection is like a lower degree, more a wannabe, whereas remote viewing is totally another ballgame.
I've spoken to people who've done it, who have been mind controlled to do it. What they do is, I don't know if this connects, but they are raped, sodomized at an early age, or there's a blade that sodomizes them, and it fractures the mind, it compartmentalizes the mind, and then within those altars, they program that with special skills, and then they do trainings within those to kind of like make them more powerful. So remote viewing, psychic abilities. Even super strength, superpowers, stuff like that. Probably where we get the Marvel comic hero, superhero things from. It's probably that's what it's referring to. But do you think that is from? Do you still think they need to mind control them, or are you saying it's purely genetic? It's purely because of the genetic confusion?
Well, to get the ranking, to do the mind control, you do everything's on the bloodline. Everything's
has to be on the bloodline. Has to be on that bloodline.
Yeah. So when we do ministry, that's the place where we hit the hardest, bloodline, generational stuff. You've got to, work with the generational stuff.
Wow, it just makes, you know what? It makes sense now. That's why the parents do it to their children, because they want to continue that lineage. They've even said, their parents said, we're doing this to you because we love you and we want to see you strong and rise to the top in the world. Because they consider their bloodline sacrosanct, don't they?
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's scary. It's by God's grace that we are not, survivors that have been through that. I tell you, it's just awful. Grace. Terrible. And then this is interesting. This is where, of course, Satan's agenda is where he wants one. The Bible says that God wants one new man, which means no Jew, no Gentile, no, we all one family, so that we're not segregated and separated, but we are one in the Lord, in Jesus Christ. His blood makes us one. But Satan also has a one new man, and he has not male nor female. And I mean, we're seeing this so often, such a lot, and it's not against the people. It's just Satan's plan that you can see what is going on. No gender identity, and it's called the XY project. So it's the chromosomes, the XY, where you just blend, and male, female doesn't matter. And the thing is, God, we are made in his image, whether you're a male or whether you're a female, but Satan now wants to take that away. Everything that God has put in place that was made beautiful with a plan, with a purpose, Satan wants to destroy and brings such confusion, such pain, such hurt. And so it's not to judge. It's not to judge. We are the last that can judge, but we want to reach out and help where we can. That's really where our hearts are. Okay, so what has happened is through all of this, there's a web that's been formed over the nations. And it's like the spider web with nodes, with grids, and people are tied to family grids. It's just such a complicated, layered, extremely intelligent network that is run and watched over. Quantum computers are being used. It's just on another level. It's what we see on Earth and what we think is progress on Earth is nothing. I mean, the cult is like 50 years ahead of us with their technology and what they are up to. So, John, there's the younger ones that we work with today for spying. I'm just going to give you this example where we know, the old way of spying is trying to break in and master keys and whatever. Now, you don't need that anymore. So you would find that they would then take a part of their humanity. So it's this part they've been split into, and they've been trained up to be spies. So they've got photogenic brains. They don't need cameras anymore. It's the brain. They can take that information in and store it, and then go and rehash it to their bosses, to report. But what they do is they take a part of their humanity and turn it into liquid silver, climb into your modem.
What?
Sit in your modem and can record everything you're saying and who you're talking to and what you're saying, what you know. This is the level of stuff.
I spoke to a survivor that said most of them have got photographic memory.
Yes.
Yeah. But they said that they were trained through trauma-based mind control to really amplify it and develop it, though. Yeah.
That's right. And they were not allowed to make a mistake. You don't make a mistake.
Yeah, they'll get electric shock treatment or cattle prods to like in that Pavlovian sort of sense to kind of train them to get things right and then be punished if they got it wrong. Yeah.
No, the price they pay is horrific. It's horrific. And then there's a generational download that comes as well of knowledge they have that they've never read a book about it. They've never studied it, but they know it. They just know it's part of them. They know it. It's like a disc that you slot in and you download it. They've just downloaded it and they uploaded
like the
this
Matrix
information. It's there.
Like Neo in the Matrix or whatever, when they said, I need a helicopter program. And then they just did that, download one into it.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So those parts can pass in and through walls as well.
They can?
Those parts that go into the modem can also pass through walls. So that they say, look, the bricks are vibrating. They can go through walls. It's not a problem.
What these people can?
Yes, I mean these ones that have gone through this horrific programming.
Yeah, I've heard of telekinesis. Yeah, but wow, I mean, I can do that in my dreams. I can walk through walls in dreams. But I can't do it in physics. That's incredible. I mean, it makes sense because atoms don't actually have any physicality to them. It's just there's a holographic element to the reality we live in, and they probably mastered that element. But were we also saying then that is this connected to the ley lines then and portals, because they're doing certain rituals on these ley lines, and it kind of puts in that evil, not that evil, but like when there's a sacrifice of a child is killed, that energy is somehow gone into that grid, into that kind of network, right? That spider's web.
Yeah. Okay, so have we been infected by fallen angel genes? Could it be how many years later? And so if we look at how many toes we're looking at here, we can see the 6 toes, and that's the sign of a giant. That's the sign of Nephilim bloodline. We've ministered to families where they've had 6 toes and 6 fingers, and then what the doctors do is they just nip off, the one at the end. Sorry, on the end there's like a little extra toe, and then they just nip that off. So then they say they're fine, but we know that spiritually these families struggle big time. And what we also have are the 6 fingers on the hand.
Jane Seymour, wasn't it? Had
Yeah.
6 fingers.
And then there's an X-ray.
Mm.
So again, they can nip, when they're babies, tiny, they just nip that one at the end. They just nip it off. So yeah, we do see this. This is a medical fact. Now, the Nephilim mothers. I want to start running down the timeline to understand an in-depth look of splice connection in DID-SRA and the royal bloodline. And so the blue bloods, as you say, what is it and how does it work? And so the particular splice is the key to understanding the gateway for the ruling principality that is associated with the bloodline of Nimrod. So here we get again Babylon, which was the head of the image that Daniel saw, and Nimrod. Nimrod was the king of Babylon. And he was a very interesting guy. There he is standing in front of the Tower of Babel. The word teaches us about Babylon and the king named Nimrod in Genesis 10. And we see that he was the embodied leopard king. Interesting that if you look at the kings of Africa, they all wear leopard skin. So those that are ranked in royalty here in Africa have got the leopard skin. So when they dance and they do their rituals and their thing, they put on the animal skin. So it's the leopard king, and he was and represents the first type of antichrist. So he was the one that stood up against God. He shook his fist at God. He was this rebellious guy that he was very cruel, very evil, and thought he was, invincible. He would never be touched. He would never die. And so he was reigning then as this king. And what is interesting, the Bible talks about him, and he says that he was a hunter. He was a mighty hunter before God, but he hunted men. He didn't hunt animals or food. He hunted men. And so we see that he was in defiance, and he built the Tower of Babel to challenge Almighty God. So he was how the Bible describes him, he was a human man when he was born. And he was looking for the secret to change into a Nephilim. He wanted the power to change into a Nephilim. And so the tower was built so that he could connect with the fallen angels. And the interesting thing is that Hitler did the same thing when he started to rule and reign. And he went to Tibet, and he climbed the Himalayan mountains, and he got them to chant, and he also wanted the secret. Everybody has been after the secret. So every secret organization, Freemasons, Rosicrucianism, all the Freemasons, all the secret stuff, what they did, rituals and things, they all looking for the secret of Nimrod. How did Nimrod change from a human being into a Geburim? The word is Geburim, which means Nephilim, demigod. And that's why Hitler, being a South African, we studied this history a lot because we needed to repent for what Germany did and what happened in South Africa too, and apartheid, because it's the same spirit. And that was where Hitler believed that he's better than. He's the Aryan race.
Yeah.
And he's better than. And so we see that that same spirit came into South Africa, and apartheid was the result. that has caused so much pain for so many people, and it was so unfair. And the sad thing in South Africa was they tried to justify it from the Bible, to say that the God of the Bible wants this. And that's a lie, because we misrepresented the true God to the people. So we have a lot of trouble and nonsense going on, but it's because of what had happened with this whole Aryan race and the apartheid thing. So there's a lot of pain in the hearts of people, and it's just Satan is just playing on it all the time. He's just
playing on
playing.
the divide. Satan plays on
Yeah,
the divide and conquer, doesn't he? Like all the
that's right.
time. Puts men
That's right.
against women, white against black,
Yeah.
trans
Yeah.
against heterosexuality, whatever.
Yes.
Gays
Yes.
against homosexuality against heterosexuality. It's rife, isn't it? Because it makes them
Yeah.
exempt from it all. It kind of
Yeah.
exalts them,
Yeah. It's just to
exonerates them.
divide us and to cause us to fight,
Yeah.
to hate one another.
Yeah.
So he was the first type of Antichrist. So the history of the warfare between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman and the lineage of the Antichrist continues until this day. We're still waiting for who's going to be the Antichrist. I mean, people have speculated and wondered, and it's going to culminate in the Battle of Armageddon. So there's going to come an end, and it's going to be at the Battle of Armageddon, where all these secret organizations that have gone through rituals and sacrifices and everything that is fed into creating this Antichrist, that's what the parents have promised the children. I've got to hurt you, because you've got to be part of the Antichrist, because we're going to win. We're going to take the earth. We're going to rule the world. So that was part of the lies. And so the ancient Jewish tradition states that Shem, one of the sons of Noah, was the one who stood up to Nimrod, and then after killing him, cut him up into 13 pieces. So Noah had 3 sons, and Shem was the one that was the godly line where Jesus Christ came from. And so they kept that line pure. But then, of course, we had the line of Canaan, and then the grandson was Nimrod. And this is where the bad line comes from. So it was quite sad, to see how that unfolded. So the history of the warfare between the seed of the serpent, sorry, did I go back now? All right, now we go back to France, and we look at Charlemagne and King Charles I. So this is now 8th century, where Charlemagne comes into power, and he starts pulling all of this together, because he's now very much under the authority of the fallen ones, and they've worked out their plans to this time where Charlemagne has got to put things in place. And so we see that history tells us that it was during this time period that Satan decided to regather together in Charlemagne that which was scattered in Nimrod, those 13 pieces that were scattered all over. And the penis, his penis was missing. The 13th part, the penis was missing. And the obelisks of the Freemasons refer to the penis of Nimrod.
That's why you see you always see these obelisks everywhere in around cities, right? Is it referring to that?
That's right. That's right. That's what it's referring to. So now you can understand where this lot is coming from. And a lot of churches have got the obelisk on their roof. So it's how they've infiltrated the churches, how they've, tried to take over the churches and rule there.
Well, they've even got like water-based sort of symbolism. Like, don't the priests wear that kind of the fish
That's
hat?
right.
And then you also see on the windows, like they're made in that kind of shape as well.
Yes.
So they've kind of corrupted and hijacked and inverted the church, right?
That's right. That's how they got into the church. Yeah, and ruled from within. So we call that the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
So the gathering or the reuniting of that which represents the 13 pieces of Nimrod. So now we have an Egyptian obelisk. We've got it in Washington. And we also have it standing, the original obelisks. So Washington has got the one, and then we've got at the Vatican, we've got the others. So it's just pretty interesting to see how they have, gone with the infiltration. Now we start with the Merovingian bloodline, which is from the 12th century. Now the gathering of all the pieces. So that was 8th century with King Charles. Now we're moving on to Merovingian. If you say you're a royal today, you have to prove that you come from the Merovingian bloodline. And that was the 12th century. That was the very first Holocaust that also took place there, was at the 12th century. Interesting. If you do a bit of history study, look at the first Holocaust. So the second Holocaust was the one that Hitler did, but the first Holocaust was here with the Merovingians because they had to sacrifice. There had to be sacrifice. All right, so Charlemagne's line then became the Merovingian bloodline. All the kings of the earth today have to prove their bloodline from Charlemagne. So that is, if you say you're a blue blood, then you must say, okay, this is where I come from. And we know that there are the names of the 13 top bloodlines. You can get studies on that to see what are those surnames and where are they. All right, so the Druid bloodlines, now history tells us that Julius Caesar was the one who was instrumental in outlawing the Druidic religion. So we just see how the Druids already in that time, the Druids were around. So there was religion going, we had the Druids, because of the practice of human sacrifice in the Roman province of Gaul. So he tried to sort of clamp down on it, and that's of course where the Roman Catholic Church also grew from and got stronger from there. And so the Kingdom of Gaul, France and Germany had 3 divisions within the Druidic culture. The first was religious, the next was warriors, and the next was workers or farmers. So those were your 3 ranks within the people group. And the Druid training included many secrets and training. They were forbidden to write anything down. So to keep the secrets, the women were abused, conditioned, and trained to hold the secrets and powers. So this is interesting that they already knew then, at that time of Julius Caesar, that we can use the woman. We will abuse them. We will condition them. In other words, what are they doing? They're doing the splitting. They're doing the mind control already in that time. And they're going to hold the secrets because nothing's allowed to be written down. So otherwise people are going to get hold of it. But they have to carry the secrets across. So they use the woman. Through sexual rituals, these powers and knowledge were transferred.
Oh, the Druids. So the Druids are a Nephilim bloodline, a spin-off, like a hybrid of, or are we saying that they're the human benevolent or not? Which bloodline?
The Druid bloodline is human.
Oh, it's human. Okay, so these are the good guys. Sorry.
Well, good guys.
Yeah,
they
okay.
were used for the evil.
They were used on behalf of the evil. Okay,
yes.
so they
Yes.
so they weren't a bloodline. They were like humans like me and you, but they were just used as foot soldiers for this. They were kind of
That's right.
Right.
To put things in place.
Yeah.
So that the enemy's plan could be carried out.
Yes. Okay. So they were getting some kind of remuneration for that. They were getting some kind of benefit from that.
Kickback. Yeah, for sure.
Kickbacks. Yeah. Okay.
And the fallen ones were telling them to do this. And the fallen ones told them what to do with the woman so that the woman would carry the secrets.
Right.
And they taught them these sex rituals. And so when there is sexual intercourse that takes place, it's not just body on body. It's body, soul, spirit. And there's a transference of spirits that takes place. And this is what happened. So these women would have sex with the kings of the earth and then transfer the knowledge of whatever the next move is to the king. And he would just wake up knowing what he's got to do. But the message came from the fallen ones because they would have sex with the woman first. The fallen angels will come and have sex with the woman, and the woman, now empowered with a message from the fallen angels will now go and sleep with the kings of the earth and give them the message.
But the fallen angels, they've done that. They've done it in spirit form. They've had sex with the human women, human females.
They, in whatever form they would come, so they could download that information to the woman.
But then, but if that's the case, then they would have become Nephilim.
If there was a baby that was born from that.
Yeah, then that would be a Nephilim.
The woman became the carriers. Their womb became the carrier of the knowledge of the secrets.
Yeah.
Because all of this has been secret. Nobody knew about this. This was all very undercover. It was hush hush. So what happened was, to obtain the highest ranking in Druidism, the priests of Gaul had to go to the Isle of Man. There's a lot of dark stuff going on there. Even to this day, they still go there for ranking. Even to this day, there is still the place of obtaining the highest ranking in Druidism in the UK and international Illuminati. You go to the Isle of Man. So that's a big one. And then Druidic secret rituals and practices are also known as the ancient secrets of Babylon. Again, here we go. Babylon features all the time because Babylon is the head of has got all the knowledge, all the plans, all the secrets, and that then has to pass down through the ages, through the generations, down to the feet of iron and clay where we are today. All right, so what we then see is the women were used in the same way as they have been used for generations. They are wanted for their wombs. That's all they want a woman for, is for the womb. Because the womb is a place where they carry knowledge and information. And so they use the womb of the woman to be the vehicle to then pass on the secrets. They are sold by their hidden biological fathers to become cult prostitutes and for their wombs to produce hybrids. So the women we work with today that are Nephilim mothers were sold by their biological fathers so that they became cult prostitutes. And of course, they couldn't sleep with anyone. These were very selected, special prostitutes for the cult. And then their wombs were used to carry the secrets so that they would download the information of what they should do with the earth. What's the next move of the earth? And so it's interesting that the women are chosen by Satan and then powered up and conditioned throughout their lives through sexual intercourse with Satan, fallen angels, and Nephilim. So these women that we've worked with can tell you that the most horrific experience in their life is to have sexual intercourse with Satan. And it's only the high up royal blue bloods that have the sex with Satan because it's his seed. And so the child that gets born from that unity is then her first Nephilim son, her firstborn Nephilim son that gets born. And then she's only pregnant for 4 months. It's not 9 months, it's 4 months.
Right.
And then she looks like she's at school. She looks like she's just putting on a bit of weight. She's just becoming chubby. And within 4 months, she's normal again, got her weight back. And this Nephilim gets taken to the Nephilim creche and gets raised. They grow very quickly. And by the time she gives birth to him at 13, age 13, and when she's 26 years old, she marries him. So in Babylon, you had Queen Semiramis, who was married to Nimrod. Then she has a son called Tammuz. And she then has sex with Tammuz. So the whole Babylonian Trinity pattern is followed throughout today. You still see it happening in families.
The interbreeding. Yeah.
Yeah. Where the mother marries the son. and then we'll give, the whole marriage thing. So she marries the Nephilim son at 26. He's a full-grown man. He is a beautiful guy. She has sex with him like every day. She's totally addicted to him.
Really? Do we see
And
that now? Can you any examples of that? Because do we see that going on?
those are the people we work with. So the Nephilim mothers that we work with, this is the kind of story that they tell you.
Okay.
That this is what they've been through. And it's in different countries, the same story.
And they're producing
they
more
know about each
children.
other.
Are they producing more children with with their sons?
They
then?
are. They do produce children. So they would sometimes sacrifice those children if it's a high thing that they need more power. They will sacrifice their own offspring. They will also have human children that they can raise in their families. Some of them can have the human children, but then they would also have children in the cult. And they blackmail them with those children to say, if you must do this and this and this, otherwise we kill your child. And they bonded. They are trauma bonded with a child. So they have lots of children. A woman has 2,000 eggs. So she can give lots of babies.
God, I have so many questions on this. So they have the it's a human female. She is impregnated by a fallen angel who comes in the physical form. This is usually at a very high level, like royal level, something like that.
Yes.
Then at 20, when this child reaches the age of 13, I think you said, is that right?
Yeah, she gives birth. Yeah.
Oh, she gives birth at 13.
She gives birth at 13. She gives
years
birth
old. At 13 years old.
Yeah, 13 years old.
And then when she's 26, she has sex with the 13-year-old.
She actually marries this Nephilim son.
Well, that's actually the story in the Quran, isn't it? I think there was a marriage at 13 with Muhammad. But yeah, okay, maybe that also connects into the 27 club. I don't want to go there, but I've also heard stories about how at 26 they have to perform certain rituals to keep things going. And if they don't, then if they kind of reject that, then there's a consequence for that. That might also connect into that as well.
27, they get taken out. It can be 17 or 27.
And if they don't play ball, then they can be killed, right? Because some of these musicians, they're probably part of a bloodline.
That's right. Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then what you mentioned about the so they do rituals where they would give up some of their human-born babies on like altars in a ceremonial kind of space. Like what is actually happening there? Like, are they communicating with fallen angels or the demonic realm? And then what's actually given in that exchange, and how does it help them in their life? How are they given powers?
Well, blood, life is in the blood.
Right.
And so if they are prepared to give their own child, like they are copycat everything. So God the Father was prepared to give his only son. And so they say, are you prepared to give your children? How much are you prepared to give? And so they play on that.
Right. Okay. And then what's that exchange? How are they given power then? Like, what's that demonic realm? Is it the demon realm or the fallen angels or what that are giving like power to them?
There's just if they are given a command that they have to sacrifice their child, that child will die. Then they don't have a choice. There is no choice. And they have wept. They have wept tears when we work through these memories with them. And they just say, but what is my child going to think? And just to realize, but mommy had no choice. Mommy didn't have a choice. And in tears and a heart broken, she sacrificed that child and just trusted that the child, would go to God. And she would see the child one day. So when we deal with that, we silence the blood and we release her from that altar and everything that she did.
But is she given a power though? Is she actually given some kind of power? Because I've heard stories.
There's an exchange.
There's an Faustian exchange where they're kind of propelled up through society. They're given status. How does that work?
Let's take, for example, a survivor is trained to be an energy generator at a ritual. So they have to supply energy for at rituals. So this is their calling, and it's normally quite a higher, because an energy generator is a very important role. It's a human being, but they are supplied and trained with spiritual containers all the time, which they have to keep filling. They've got to fill these containers with energy. And the energy that they use is blood. So it's the sacrifices, and it's sex. So they would then, to be able to do a ritual. Let's say you've got this. I'm just going to take this little bag. You've got this person that is now the energy generator over a ritual, over an altar.
Can I take off the share screen so I can see you and everyone?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So what we have is you've got a ritual happening. Okay, you've got the altar, and so babies have to die. They have to call up spirits globally. They would do global rituals where they have to, at the same time, and they use Greenwich Mean Time as their standard. So people all over the world is not running at this. I mean, we're not running at the same time. But what they do is they use time machines forwards and backwards, and they get them globally all to be on the same time. Okay, so they, at the same time, they will all do the ritual. They will all chant whatever they chant. The New Agers are good at this. They sing songs and try and bring peace and all of that. But the cult also, because it's in the unity is the power. And so to have all of this happen all over the world where the ritual is taking place at the same time, you would have then, let's say this is now then, in England, and this is where they're doing this ritual, and then you've got this person who's the generator. So the generator is overseen, and you've got this person that's trained, is a royal, is powered up, has gone for years and years of pain and torture and everything, sex, and really powered up strong, and got lots of containers. Now she has underneath her other people that work for her, worker bees that work for her, and they do tantric sex. And so they build up such energy with tantric sex, because you're not allowed to climax, because if you climax, you're out, you lose it. Yeah. So you've got the tension causes all the energy, and they keep on filling the container the whole time, filling the container with energy so that the ritual will work. And then this one who's at the top, the main one that is now the blue blood, trained up, she looks down on the ritual and sees, okay, things are not going well. That one's weakening. That one's getting tired. This one is not able to, say what they need to do. So what she then does is she watches what's going on and then sends energy down to them and powers them up with energy bolts, and gets them so that they're all running and they are going and they're strong and they can release whatever they have to do and release, and whatever they have to proclaim over the world can happen. And so this energy generator is a very important part of the ritual. And so this has to take place, and the containers are all there. And so that is how she's been powered up since before her conception. There was already a scroll that was written by Satan. This is what you will be. This is your role in the cult. And so she plays a very important role, because if you take away the energy source, the ritual can't happen. And that's why the guys in prayer should understand this, so that they know how to pray, remove the energy source, so that the rituals can't work.
How would you, they're like energetic queen bees, aren't they, in that whole ritual?
Yeah.
They're the ones. So how would you remove that? How do you, we dissipate them. We use our prayer to dissipate the rituals.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
you can. You ask God, of course, with his angels, and
Yeah.
while you're praying, and
Yeah.
you're praying that these things would, they would weaken, but
Mm.
they cannot weaken unless you remove the power. I mean, the one giving, the generator giving them the power is the one holding it all together.
So you have that generator, that female at the top that provides more power to the, and then
Yes,
there's people in tantric practice in the level below, men and
yes.
women, or just women again,
Men and
men and
women, yeah,
women. So it's a
yeah.
container of that energy, and then how does it involve the child being killed at that point?
Well, it depends on what they are doing at the altar, because
Mm.
if it's a global thing that they want to
Yeah.
shift things, like, for example, start wars in different countries,
Oh yeah.
okay, then they have to send a lot of negative energy, and they've got to start building up the anger, and they have
Mm.
instigators. So, in other words, in the different countries, they have different assignments. So, the wars that have happened in this world have not been from God. It's just been man that has been very, very greedy.
Okay, so they've generated their own. They've generated it in the energetic world, and that's
Yes,
what's created it
yes,
in the physical world,
yes,
geopolitically,
yes, yes,
geographically.
yes,
I
yes.
see. Okay, so they're
Yeah,
almost, yeah, they're like yeah, generators of that energy. Yeah,
yeah.
it has to be quite vast
Especially,
for them to create a war.
yeah, especially if you're working with the kings of the earth, fallen angels, and then these blue bloods. It's not Mickey Mouse. It's shifting money across nations. It's causing wars. It's the fact that they could shut down the world
Mm.
4 years ago. There's a
Must
lot
have
of
taken a
ritual.
lot of energy, rituals to be done for that.
I
Yeah.
tell you, a lot, John.
Mm.
It was a build up. It
Mm.
wasn't just a thought, okay, let's do it.
Mm.
It was a build up. It was planned. How
But
long ago?
it's woken a lot of people up, though. I think on some
It does.
spiritual level, it's actually benefiting consciousness because I've
Yes,
woken up a lot more from it. 9/11, a
yes,
lot of people woke up from that.
yes,
And I think
yes,
as they do this, as they perform these heinous global acts of terror, it actually has a sharpening effect on the mind and the awareness
yeah,
of people. Those
yeah,
that are ready to receive, let's just say that,
yes,
because not everyone
yes,
is there yet. So I
yes.
actually think maybe on some cosmic level, is this not still in God's plan?
God is still ultimately always on the throne, and he
Yeah.
turns things around where they thought they had us in their pockets,
Yeah.
and we will bow down and worship
Mm,
them, and we didn't.
no.
And it's actually woken people up. So
I
it's
think
had the
waking
opposite
up.
effect.
I think they've messed up. I
I
think,
think so. I
Yeah, yeah,
think
they've
so.
overplayed their hand.
All
Great.
right. So the women are chosen by Satan and then powered up and conditioned throughout their lives, and then through sexual intercourse with Satan, fallen angels, and Nephilim. They will receive secret knowledge and power, which they will then transfer to the kings of the earth. So these women have been governmental slaves, and they've written books.
Mm,
There's a book called Thank You for the Memories by a lady called Bryce Taylor.
mhm.
Um, and you can download her book. You can get it from her. And it describes how she was a governmental slave, a little girl that had to power up these governmental leaders, and how she was used. It's quite shocking,
Wow.
but it's kind of like tongue in the cheek saying, well, thank you for the memories. So she's in her 70s already, done amazing work by writing the book or telling her story.
Mm.
Another lady that is very good is Wendy Hoffman. I don't know if anyone has heard about Wendy Hoffman, and she has written a couple of books as well, very, very well described, and her therapist has also written books. So what I'll do is I can send you a list of these people, and then you can just post it up
Yeah, we'll
and
do. I'll
see.
flash it all up in the edit, so don't
Okay,
worry. Yeah, yeah.
okay, all
Mm,
right. Okay, so they receive this secret knowledge. It's all about the secret stuff that's got to be downloaded to the kings of the earth so that they can run the world. Looks like the kings of the earth are running the world, but it's actually the fallen angels and the Nephilim that's doing it. For example, see the reports where Hitler and the Nazi scientists received their very advanced knowledge from. Now, History Channel did a very good job, and they did the whole thing about the scientists that were removed from Germany and taken to the United States, and how Vernon von Braun, who was the head of NASA, actually they asked him, they did an interview and asked him, where did you get your power? Where did you get your knowledge to make the U-2 rockets? And he pointed, he said, from them, referring to the fallen angels. So Hitler had specifically gone to get information, and that because he wanted to win the world, he wanted to be king of the world. So he got his information from them. We've prayed at those places in Germany. We went to the actual place where they designed the rockets, and how many of those people were blown up because there was mistake. There was a faulty downloads of the formulas, and then the people blow up, and then but it's part of the game because they need the blood, they need the sacrifice.
Yeah, it's also called Operation Paperclip, isn't it? When they came over to America,
that's right. That's right.
And they started off with medical experimentation as well. Joseph Mengele and
yes,
people like him.
that's very sad.
And that's I've heard theories that actually the Nazis won the war and it just went underground.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they didn't die. They didn't die. There's too much. The photographs. The survivors are talking. The older ones are talking how they knew Mengele. He put them into cages, so they couldn't tell stories about him.
Yeah.
All right, then you get presidential or governmental sex slaves, and that's through ritual sex today. Women are used to transfer demonic power and information from Satan himself to top world leaders, the kings of the earth. So again, the same way that they did it years ago with the women that have sex with the fallen angels, receive the information and then have sex with the men and transfer it to them. Large amounts of money is exchanged when the handler father allows his conditioned sex slave to transfer the power and information to world leaders in the religious, political, economic sphere of influence. So that's how they could control every walk of life. That's how they have worked for all these years, down the generations. All right, so understanding the bloodlines, we start with Adam and Eve, and then the fall of man. Then we have Babylon, and we have Semiramis and Nimrod. They were king and queen of Babylon. Then we have Charlemagne. So I'm just sort of splitting it, so that you can follow the timeline. And then from Charlemagne, you have the Merovingian bloodline in the 12th century. And then the Druids that stood up and took over there. And then you have the 13 top bloodlines plus Satan. So the nations, so all the nations were now under the control of the fallen ones. And they were all bought in on this whole thing. Whether it was in the East or whether it was wherever in the world, you were part of this. I was surprised. We went to Hawaii and met with a Japanese royal. And I thought, I've worked only with the European royals. And so by surprise, African ones too. And this lady was from Japan, from that bloodline. And she knew Mengele. She knew everything. So it was a whole global network that was happening. And how many people knew? It was so secret. Nobody knew about it. Only the inner circle people that knew. And then in 1948 was a huge, huge thing that happened. And that was when the Israel was born. The nation came back again. And then we have from there, mind control, Nephilim as it is today, was established.
Can I just pause that? Because the Israel, is that not another Trojan horse? Because it was it not the Balfour Declaration?
Yes.
Is it Jacob Rothschild? One of the Rothschilds, anyway.
A lot was infiltrated.
They're using the window dressing of Jews and then
Yes,
they're actually Satanists hiding behind, and they're using the state of Israel as their new base, and they're trying to
that's
expand
right.
that outwards, aren't they? And
That's right.
so that's what people need to understand. When the state of Israel is not the same as ancient Israel, and I think the
That's
state of
right.
Israel is Satanists hiding, wolves in
Trying, yeah.
sheep's clothing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. So there is a remnant that are genuine, and they're really standing, for the land and for God's purposes.
yeah.
But as you say, there is a lot of other stuff happening there as well.
Walter Rothschild was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rothschilds. So you've got Druidism, mind control, New World Order, practice today. So this is interesting. This is now, we want to see how did it play out in our lifetime. So the whole Romanov, which is the the Russian Jew, the shield of Romanov, Holstein, Gottorp, and a dynasty. So that is what the shield looks like. And we always tell people, go and look at the shield, your family crest, and you'll see a lot of stuff and covenants that have been made. The House of Oldenburg. So they were reigning in Russia from 1613 to 1917. And we know that the House of Oldenburg is one of the most influential royal houses, with branches in Denmark, Iceland, Greece, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and Oldenburg, all the German line. And there was also another earlier. Now, Anastasia was the young girl that was the only living survivor. They wiped out all the Romanovs, but it was just this one girl that survived. She was 16. Also, this is secret because according to history and anything you research, everybody died. The whole family was wiped out. But according to the cult history and what the survivors are reporting, was there was an Anastasia who was the mother of them all. And she was 16, and she was the start, and she was sacrificed. They were torturing her and killing her when she had babies in her womb. And they had impregnated those babies. And so those babies were the carriers that then came forth. So everyone talks of an Anastasia. So there's always this Anastasia link of this young girl who was like the mother. But the older one was same Anastasia bloodline, 1560 to 1530. Married Ivan the Fourth, the Terrible, and her father was known as the progenitor of the Romanov dynasty. So again, we just see this bloodline coming through. Now, what I want you to see is the German-English-Russian alliance. And this is where we have the three cousins. So if you're talking about them all coming back into a one new world order, we're going to see this playing out very strongly. So you've got Germany, and you've got England, and then you have Russia. And these three were cousins, and they all belonged to Queen Victoria. So you have Victoria, who's all over the world. You have Lake Victoria, you have Victoria. I mean, our country is full of Victorias, and, it's just how she has positioned herself all over the place. And we are getting a lot of the survivors have got a Victoria, very strong core part Victoria, that's lining up with Queen Victoria. So they are all playing in this coming together with the three cousins. This is a picture that a survivor drew. Sorry for the graphics. I'm going to go quick. But Queen Victoria's at the top. You can see the fleur-de-lis, and then you've got the woman at the bottom, and how they then get impregnated to control the world. So this was drawn by a survivor, a blue blood. All right, so you've got the splice connection. This is interesting. We've got this King George VI. The bloodline is connected to Nimrod. So this is where Nimrod is coming to our day. And his timeline is 14 December 1895 to 6th February 1952. And then because he's joined to Nimrod, who was the first Antichrist, we can just see how this Antichrist line is being played out through time. So this is a crucial bloodline connection in the cult, is this King George VI. And so you've also got to prove that if you're a blue blood, that this was part of your line. And then we have these Nephilim mothers. When conceiving, women would bring forth Nephilim. It was important to have both bloodlines represented. So Nimrod and King George VI had to be represented here, so that you could say that you're blue blood. And then a fallen angel or hybrid sodomized Hitler. This was also reported by quite a few survivors, the blue bloods, that a fallen angel or the hybrid would come and sodomize Hitler from behind, and then Hitler, in the meantime, at the same time, was sodomizing King George the Sixth. So this is the power. You can just imagine how the power transfer takes place. And then when his seed was released, this was actually a new form of seed, because these fallen angels were now in line with this wanting to bring forth the Antichrist, and they had to then prepare the women that were going to bring forth these Nephilim that would be born on the earth. And so it was so spiritually charged that it was a new seed that was formed through the seed of King George VI. So this is the connection to the last human king, and to bring forth a form of the Antichrist. So the last human king was King George VI. And that's what we then see. It's very important to be connected to Nimrod. And Hitler is a type of an Antichrist king. And Babylon is the harlot of all the mothers. And Nimrod is the resurrected Messiah. So Nimrod will be featuring in the last days again. He is going to come forward again. We will be seeing him coming forward. So we got to watch out for this, because as in the days of Noah, it's going to be so in our day as well.
But as a giant, or as in a human form, would you say? Appearing in the human form?
I don't know, John. I don't know how he's going to manifest himself. All I know is that there will be, Revelation tells us that there will be witnesses that will appear in Jerusalem. And Satan's a copycat. So he's going to bring forth how and who and what. We're going to have to wait and see, but the survivors are talking about this. But they don't have all the knowledge either. Although they have secrets, they had to just pass it on, and the kings of the earth took the secrets and they continued with whatever the plan was.
So we've had the like the kind of Nephilim royalty ever since George VI. Is that right?
Say that again, John. Sorry.
So we've had Nephilim royalty ever since George VI. That's
yes.
What, like the Saxe-Coburgs maybe is yes. What we renamed, yes. Rebranded to the Windsors are actually
absolutely.
Nephilim.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Nimrod was a mighty hunter, and the kings of this world all have one mind. They are connected. There's a network between them that they don't need words. There's a language that happens psychically.
Yeah.
And so Hitler's splicing of DNA, because he was the whole eugenics, did the project of eugenics. And Hitler's splicing of DNA fits into the conception event that took place in 1944. So he had this big project, and his own DNA was then used and spliced in so that he would be carried forth. His DNA would be carried forth. So him and George the Sixth were very, very connected. So there's a lot of relations that are not spoken about publicly, but behind the scenes there are definitely connections. I can send you quite a few articles that I've got they've done research on this. And that represents this connection with Satan. So The Hitler splice is the most hidden thing in the SRA survivors. And it's one of the last things that emerges in a DID person system. So to get to the Hitler splice of where Hitler was spliced, his DNA was spliced in, so they all carry the DNA of Hitler, and in the royal, specifically in the blue bloods,
Wow.
this splice would be there. I don't know if you've seen The Lost Boys of Brazil, the
No.
movie. Wow. That's something to see. It's a fiction story, but I think there's a lot of truth in there.
I mean, because
And
I've heard other stories
that's
about
the
Hitler
splicing.
being, I've heard that he was actually going against the whole network and they've demonized him. And that was why he, wanted to um, remove the so-called Jews from the,
Yeah, the
under
earth.
his control because he realized they were actually Satanists. And that's
Yeah.
actually why he was trying to kind of get rid of them. And he was trying to do it in a peaceful way. There's a documentary called Battle Europa kind of talks about it. But you think he was legitimately part of that satanic
Yeah.
bloodline? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Look, I do believe that he was totally under Satan's control, John.
Right.
He did what he did because of Satan.
Right.
He was just performing what he was told.
Okay.
Okay, and then the splicing, if you look at the Lost Boys of Brazil, you'll see that they've taken Hitler's DNA and put it into 8 little boys. And then they get followed by the Mossad to try and trace them. And then each little boy has to be found. And the little boys are 8. And it's or 11 or 12, but it's very interesting. I'll give you that detail as well
Yeah.
that you can watch. It's really something to see. So these are one of the most hidden secrets that the blue bloods are actually carrying the DNA of Hitler. Yeah, okay. So the Hitler mindset is to wipe out all the Jews, and the Hitler project was against the whole body of Messiah from the beginning. So from the beginning, he hated the church, he hated religion, he hated anything to do with God and the Bible, and then, of course, the people of God. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up here with Hollywood and the pop culture in these days. We've got Avatars, the movie. We have Thor, the thunder god, which is a whole Germanic god. The other movie we have is X-Men. So all of these things are being played out. The story that we've just spoken about, Hollywood knows all about it. And they know more than the church. And then you've got Splice, which is the mixed seed of human and a rat, a mice.
Wow.
And yeah, there's another one of Splice. And then, but we're told not to fear. And that's the big thing, is we are seated with Christ in heavenly places. We mustn't fear when we see these things. We just look up. We've got to tap into God and draw closer to him. And so he's telling us to put on the helmet of salvation. Keep our thoughts focused on him. Don't keep your thoughts on all the stuff that we've opened up now. Keep it there so that you can discern, so that you know what's going on. The Father God is in control, no matter what. He is at work with his awesome plan of redemption. Our hope must be in Jesus. So it's the whole thing is, please don't fall for fear and go into the way that Satan wants you to go into. Don't allow that. Just keep your mind, hold your thoughts, and keep it focused on God. This is the Lord's big day. It's not Satan's big day. This is the Lord's big. He couldn't wait for this day. His finest hour. It's not the enemy's big day. And so we know that King Jesus is going to come on a white horse, and he's coming as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So, yeah, let's look forward to that day.
God bless.
And yeah.
And thank you for putting this incredible presentation together.
Oh,
I mean,
it's a blessing.
yeah. You put so much care and love into your presentations, and every word I can feel the holiness behind it, the weight behind it, credit to yourself and, the way that you're walking through this world as well, in the light. So nice to connect with you and, your time. You know, feels very unconditional when as you're speaking. It's lovely, you know. Thank you
No,
so
thanks,
much.
John. I appreciate that.
Yeah.